Hey, I'm Vera. Let's talk about how you can overcome fear and anxiety. I'm going to share 3 important realizations with you. Number 1, why fear is actually a good thing. Number 2, I'll talk about the 2 different types of fear so you can tell which category your fear falls into. Number 3, I will give you a practical process that you can use so that you can reduce your own fear in your life. So let's begin with number 1, why fear is actually a good thing. Well, the reason fear is a good thing is because it keeps you alive, and it has kept your ancestors alive. So without fear, you probably wouldn't be around. So I actually get really annoyed whenever people talk about becoming fearless and how the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, because it's really not true. Can you imagine a world where nobody would be afraid? I mean, we'd have way more accidents. People would never go to their health checkups, would eat unhealthy food all day. It would be like a complete disaster. So yeah, let's be grateful for fear. This brings me to point number 2, the 2 different types of fear. Now, we can be afraid of danger. And throughout humans' evolution, that has been the more common type of fear. Our ancestors, like back when we lived in caves, they were afraid of starving, they were afraid of being attacked by a wild animal, and so on and so forth. So for them, fear of danger was always present. And I presume that for animals today, that's still the case, at least, for wild animals. They still feel a lot of fear of danger. If we look at our own lives, depending on where you live and your situation, you probably don't have a lot of actual dangers in your life, other than, like perhaps cars and things like that. What the fear we most often feel is actually a fear of change. And the thing is that our fear feels pretty similar, regardless of whether it's a lion that's about to eat us or it's a great opportunity that presents itself that we don't feel ready for. So here's the advice. If you're afraid of danger, it's probably a good thing to listen to your fear, right? Depending on how helpful your fear's advice is. You don't want to get rid of that fear response. However, if you're afraid of change, that fear can really hold you back because it means that you are perhaps not taking a risk that would be great to take. And you might stay in your comfort zone. So we do need a process for dealing with the fear of change. So what's that process? Well, before I share the process with you, let me quickly tell you why we need that process. Now, culturally, we have 2 approaches to fear, typically. Number 1, let's fight our fear. And that's this sort of like whole approach of becoming fearless and, smash our fear, dauntless. And that sometimes works, and sometimes you just end up with sleepless nights. Depending on what type of fear we're talking about, you also could end up in pretty bad situations that you later regret getting yourself into. So generally, I wouldn't always recommend fighting your fear as a good approach for dealing with that. But the other approach, and here we have the fight or flight response, is to flee our fear. And basically, if our fear tells us to not do something, let's say, hey, I'm not going to sing publicly, then I won't do that because I'm afraid. And again, that's not often the best approach to fear because, again, it keeps us in this comfort zone. And we stop ourselves from doing something that we actually really want to do. So we do have 2 bad options. We have fight or flight, and none are really working that well. So what then is the better choice? Well, the better choice is to change how we see fear. You see, both of these approaches basically see fear as an enemy. We see it as something that's there to harm us. And that's why we go into fight or flight. If fear wasn't an enemy, but let's say a good friend or a counselor, would we want to fight or flee from our fear? No, definitely not, right? We'd say, hey, hello, tell me more. What can you recommend? So the shift is to see fear not as an enemy, but as an advisor. And here's a quick process for doing that. Now, you might like to pause the video and grab a pen or paper, or I'll also share a link below where you can see a written version of that process. So basically, you ask yourself what it is that you're afraid of. And then you also write down your worst case scenario. And be dramatic. You know, maybe the worst case scenario is you're going to die and everybody's gonna hate you and I don't know, your loved ones will curse your name and so on and so forth. Just, you know, the worst case scenario. Get it out of your system. And you might then also ask yourself how likely it is that that scenario will happen, and also what steps you can take to prevent that from happening. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Basically, you're giving your fear some time to talk. And that by itself can already dramatically reduce your fear. Because the thing is, your fear is really a bit like a fire alarm. And if it goes off, it's helpful to listen to it, even if you just want to make sure that you're not missing anything crucial. I do hope this was helpful for you. If you would like to see more videos like that, simply hit the subscribe button below. Bye.